I've known Dana for many, many years. Dana, I don't know how to count. All I know is we were both young, single, no wives, no kids, weightless. I had more hair. Everything was different. But Dana came in as the congressman, 1988. And it was like a change for the community. We had a guy that had worked with Ronald Reagan who had really known how things are done, how the sausage is really made as our congressman. And Dana, from time after time after time, when it comes to the tough decisions, Dana makes a tough decision in the conservative way. What happens too many times is sometimes the Republican Party is known to get a little cozy with business. They got to watch it. Now, we all want lower taxes, less regulation, but sometimes you find out that they're cutting special deals for businesses and all that kind of stuff, giving away our money. And Dana would always kind of find those things and say it didn't make sense. Also, where Dana's a real expert in is what's happening in a part of the world right now that really matters, the Middle East, from Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. Dana knows the people by name that are the players in those communities. In Egypt, he knows the players by name. He actually goes there and meets with them. When we have problems in our country trying to communicate, it's amazing how the White House or the other administrations or other offices will actually go through Dana because he has personal relationships. Dana came on the founding of Ronald Reagan, which is about being free, people being free, and that we have to continue to have that in this country here. Now, it's not always popular what Dana does. I mean, there are times that I get mad at him. Dana, why'd you do that? But the reality is he'll stick to his principles, whether you agree with them or don't agree with them. He'll always stick to his principles. He's always somebody you can talk to, and he'll explain his position. I'm sure he'll explain his position on all sorts of things here today. But Dana's been a great conservative for California and the country. Dana Rohrabacher.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Jim was actually a big guy in the realtors, and frankly, I'm a journalist. That's what I was before I got deeply involved in the Reagan White House when I became Reagan's speechwriter. But so I'm a writer, and Jim knows all about these business things. And I was sitting next to him one night they were honoring him. He had been president of the realtors or something, and we hit it off. And I said, well, here's a guy who actually can keep the books. Thanks, Jim, for helping me keep the books. Unfortunately, I had somebody else keep the books for me starting about 5 years ago. And you might have heard about last year, he embezzled all of my money in my campaign. But let me just note that for those who are concerned about that, we did send out a letter and let people know that I was in a situation where I was vulnerable, because my treasurer, my campaign, embezzled all of our money. And I'll tell you something, I never raise much money. I never go out and raise money because I don't like asking for a lot of money, and unless you really need it, I don't want to do that. So I just sent a letter to all the people who've been supporting me over the years saying, I'm in a bad situation, could you help out? If you can, send the money in. And, it was just right out of It's a Wonderful Life. All of a sudden, everybody poured money in, and we actually got all that money back and more from what had been embezzled with us, just to have one little letter sent out saying, people, I'm in a bad spot. So I felt really good about that. And it's always good when you're a political person to know that they have some sign that people are grateful for what you're doing. Because quite frankly, I just as soon be here drinking tequila and going to the beach every day than saving America. But America needs saving, and it needs so really badly. I was, how many went to the screening of The Hiding Place, Return to the Hiding Place? We had a screening above, as you know, Monahan's Pub is my sort of operations center. We have that right above the pub. We have this big area space, about twice as big as this, I think, where we have a lot of political operations. We screen movies. And we screened a movie up there called Return to the Hiding Place. And it's about a group of Dutch kids, they're college kids, who were, this true story, in World War II, were intervening and they'd find out who the Germans were going to go and get, like Anne Frank and the Jews that were being targeted to be sent off to concentration camps, and they would intercede and they would run out and they'd get these people and save them and put them in a hiding place. And it was slowly but surely the ranks of these kids, they were being arrested, they were being murdered, and et cetera, and it looked like they were going to lose. It looked like this was going to be something that they were going to just be decimated. And at the very low point, this guy opens the window and these planes come by, and they're American planes, and they saved the day. Except when we open the window, there's not going to be anybody coming. Who's going to save our day? There's not going to be any Americans coming over the hill to save us, because we are the last best hope of humankind. And if we don't do it, we lose it forever. And I will tell you this right now, we're on the edge. We are on the edge. If we do not take the gang that is now in control of the executive branch of government and eliminate their power, America will never be the same. We are one Supreme Court judge away from communism. That's what we are, one Supreme Court judge away. They will, after you change that, and your rights are nothing. This president has done more to set the precedent that law does not count. The Constitution does not count. What is he about to do? He's about to issue an executive order about our rights to keep and bear arms. Since when does the President of the United States issue law? The Constitution demands that the President, enforces the law, and it's the Congress that makes the law. And I will tell you, this president is about as arrogant and anti-freedom as any individual I have ever met in politics. We are in jeopardy. And I hope that each and every one of you understand that either we do our best and save the day, because you're going to open the window and there's not going to be any planes flying in from another country to save us. And that's what we're up against. I'd like to introduce you to somebody. His name is Charlie Santos and Paul Berkowitz. Paul, Charlie, I want you to know this guy is responsible for helping save the lives of thousands of American military personnel. Charlie, Paul, and myself, during the Afghan War with the Soviets, were helping with the Mujahideen to defeat the Soviets. Charlie got involved after the Soviets had left and was deeply involved during that time period before 9/11, during the time when the Taliban was there. Paul and I were deeply involved in Afghanistan at the same time. We're the only three Americans that stayed involved after the war. I had been involved, some of you may know I was involved there during the Afghan War, fighting with the Mujahideen against the Russians. Well, what happened was, of course, I went there on several occasions and with Charlie's help was able to track down various what they call warlords, what later became the Northern Alliance. And at 9/11, after 9/11, it could be a long story, I'll just say, after 9/11, we did our very best to get the information out, and Charlie personally was the one who was able to brief our intelligence sources on exactly where to go and exactly who to see. While I was up trying to get the attention of the Pentagon and the CIA in Washington, he was making sure the people in operations got the word. The Pentagon wanted to do, after 9/11, what they wanted to do is have an Iraqi-like invasion of Afghanistan from the south, from Pakistan, which would have been a total catastrophe. We would have lost. Within about 1 week, we'd have been exactly where the Russians were, in the cities surrounded by hostile territory. But in the north, the Taliban had lots of enemies, and Charlie sought them out. Paul and I were working with him, and we sought out these leaders, and they became known as the Northern Alliance. And when the Taliban were actually driven out of Kabul, the capital city, there were only 200 Americans on the ground. Only two. The rest of it was done by what they called the Northern Alliance. And again, as I say, Charlie was instrumental in setting that up. Had we gone down through the south, we would have failed. It would have cost thousands of lives, and it would have been a failure. Can you imagine what that would have been like to the national psyche right after 9/11? Incredible. Well, that's the type of thing, by the way. Thank you, Charlie, by the way. Thank you very much. God bless. And that's the type of thing that I have been doing as your congressman. I'll have to admit, most congressmen don't do those sort of things. But in the last month, for example, I have been in Egypt with General Sisi. The pivotal person in the fight against radical Islam is General Sisi of Egypt. Do you know what our president thinks of General Sisi? Our president thinks that General Sisi shouldn't be the president of Egypt and has been undercutting him every step of the way. And this is a man, if he's gone, our president feels more comfortable with someone in the Muslim Brotherhood in charge of the most populous country in that part of the world. Something's wrong there, isn't there? Something's really wrong. Well, it's up to us to try to head that off. That's what I've been trying to do. I am the chairman of the Egyptian caucus. And by the way, I was just down there with General Sisi, like I say, in Egypt, and I sat down with him for about an hour and a half. And what I'm going to do now, this is my job next week when we come back, is I am presenting to the Speaker of the House an official request to grant General Sisi the right to come and address a joint session of the House and the Senate and the Congress. So that's foreign policy. That's the type of thing I'm involved with. People probably also know that I personally think that when I worked with Ronald Reagan, the reason we won the Cold War was because Ronald Reagan prioritized it. Who was our primary enemy? And that's who we're going to go after. That's the most important thing. And our enemy was the Soviet Union. And when asked in the beginning, I remember the administration, President briefed us, what is your strategy in the Cold War with the Soviet Union? He said, my strategy is they lose, we win, go get the job done, boys. That's it, there you go. And that's what we all fanned out to do, and that's what we did. The Cold War's over. Who's our primary enemy? Our primary enemy is any radical Islamic person, whether they're part of an organization, which they are organized, or whether they are inspired by their faith and thus other organizations are manipulating them, who would kill us and kill our families in order to terrorize the West into retreating from the world. That's our primary enemy. And I have been, for the last 2 years, working with Russia to defeat that enemy. And there is no reason in the world why we should ever be concerned that Russia is in Syria killing people who want to kill us. I think it's a very good thing that the Russians are bombing radical Muslims who want to kill us. Because they happen to want to get Assad too, I don't care. So I've been very involved with that as well. In terms of domestic policies, let me just say I am very deeply involved with space and science issues. Most people don't know that, but I spend half of my time on space and science issues. That's about 10 years ago, I was the chairman of the subcommittee on space, which meant I oversaw the $17 billion budget of NASA. And I realized then that budgets are going to be tight. We were already, even then, we were spending more than we were taking in. So we have to figure out a way of making that $17 billion of a space program much more effective. And I wrote a bill called the Commercial Space Act of 2004, which was the foundation of a commercial space program, which means we're going to bring billions of dollars in from the private sector so that the private sector can do whatever in space that the private sector can do. All those other things, NASA and the deep exploration of the universe, fine, let's let NASA do that. But having a space transportation system so we can get people back and forth from the space station, or setting up some type of refueling system in space, or even some type of situation on the moon, those are things that the private sector can do. So with the bill that I put in, there wouldn't have been a SpaceX without that bill. And we already have billions of dollars of more dollars going into space efforts than we would have had that bill not passed. And by the way, the bill passed by 3 votes. And when I first wrote it, I was told this does not have a chance of being enacted, because you got to get a 2/3 vote. And the Democrats are kind of real uneasy about this idea. They believe that the government should run all these different programs. And I believe there is a role for government, but there's a big role for the private sector as well. And so when I got down to the floor, I said that my staff wanted me to pull it. They said, pull the bill, you're going to lose. We've done the count, you're not going to get the votes. Well, I went down to the floor, and beside me was Sylvester Reyes, who was the chairman of the Hispanic Caucus. Now, even in 2004, I'd already been a member of Congress since 1988, and even from the very beginning, I realized that illegal immigration was something that was very negative to the well-being of average Americans. So I had been the #1 spokesman trying to get a stop to the massive flow of illegals into our country. Well, the Hispanic Caucus had the exact opposite point of view. And so I'd been at loggerheads with Sylvester Reyes for many years. And I'm sitting there, and Reyes says to me, Dana, you got a bill coming in here in about 45 minutes. What's it all about? And I said, well, I just told you, well, we only got $17 million or $1 billion in the budget for NASA. We need to bring in money from the private sector. That's what this will do. He says, well, Dana, that's going to create a lot of good jobs, isn't it? I said, yeah, really good jobs. And he goes, the Hispanic Caucus is backing you. Whoa. I said, and he went around, I watched him in the half hour before that vote was going to happen, buttonhole all kinds of people, and he got me 9 votes. It won by 3 votes. So think about that. So even when you disagree with somebody in Washington, if you really seek out, you can find ways of working together to find something that you could do to make things better. And even though Sylvester Reyes and I had that disagreement on illegal immigration, we made sure it was our cooperation that made all the difference in America's space program today, and the viability and what SpaceX just did with sending a rocket in there, completing a mission in space, then coming down and land that rocket so it can be reused again. That is historic. That will bring down the cost of doing things in space so dramatically it's beyond imagination. So very pleased with that. Now, in terms of the overall budget, and then I'll get it, whatever questions you have, we are still spending $1 out of every 5 that the federal government spends is borrowed, which means that everything that we are doing that doesn't have to be done by the federal government is now being given as a bill to our children. When instead of letting somebody else do it, the private sector, or taking things back to the states, or just not having government involved in something because it's better for the government not to get involved in something, by not being willing to take on that task and stop that, we are giving $1 out of every $5 spent is actually going to be paid for by the children. When they go and they have schools, you know, we will have we have a good school system here in Costa Mesa. Will we have that 30 years from now, when the interest of all of that money that debt that we're putting on these kids, they're going to have to pay the interest on that? They're not going to have a good education because it's going to be going into the interest that they have to pay. And remember, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. And when the interest rates start changing in this country, you can imagine what impact that's going to have. So we have a dramatic challenge before us to try to come to grips with that debt. And I think that that's what this election is going to be all about. It's going to be about 2 or 3 things. One is going to be, how do we restructure our system in a way that our system will be able to work and make sure that our children aren't being put into servitude to service a debt that we're giving to them. That's one. And am I supposed to open up now? Is that it? Sorry.
No, when you get the questions, I'll take the microphone so
Okay.
it can be recorded well.
All right. Okay. So anyway, with that said, I don't think anything is going to get done this year. It's an election year. And the American people are going to decide what direction they want to go. And if the American people decide that they're going to go with Obama light or whatever, or maybe Hillary, which is, I think, Obama heavy, and that's the way our country will go, and we will suffer the consequences. And I think there will be no coming back from that. If we elect a Republican, it has to be, we have to have a Republican at least who's not going to let things get worse. And perhaps we have a Republican that and I've endorsed one that I think that is creative enough and is aggressive enough and is knowledgeable enough to actually format a plan that will put us back on a long-term trajectory that's a positive trajectory. And I have endorsed Ted Cruz, and I think, and I want to just mention, I know that the CRA is planning to do some endorsements. I would encourage you to endorse Ted Cruz, and I know Tom Pollock and others around here are very active and are going to have this convention. And where's Tom here? I don't see you there. When is it going to be? The CRA convention.
The one in February is at the
Knott's Berry Farm.
Knott's Berry Farm in February.
That's presidential and state.
Okay, so I would recommend. Right, I will be there nominating or offering Ted Cruz's name in nomination. And one last thing, we need, America is either going to. We could take care of Washington, D.C., but we got to make sure that we're rebuilding America from the grassroots up. And what Jim and Steve have been working their butts off here trying to make this city a decent city. And it's a difficult job, and it's a thankless job. You know, you try to do your very best, and the only time you ever hear from anybody is when they disagree with you on something. And I know Jim and Steve have been working so hard, and I'm so grateful to them for that. Because I am now, of course, a resident of this city, and a proud resident of this city. And so with that said, if you have a couple questions, I'll be very happy to answer any questions.
Drought is a big problem here. Do you have any solutions for us at the local level, what we can do, aside from trying to save the fish?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing to do is to get rid of those people who have refused to build the infrastructure that we need to take care of our needs during a drought. Okay, that's the most important thing, because there will always be droughts, and sometimes there will even be storms where you have more water than you need. But you have to have an infrastructure that can deal with this, and what we've got is the liberal wing of the Democratic Party are so radically involved with this sort of, I can't even call it environmentalism, because they're destroying our environment as well. The fact is that they haven't been permitting us to fill our aquifers around the state. who could not want to fill your aquifer and in case there's a drought? And we have, even here in Orange County, we wanted to put the water level up over in Prado Dam or something, and no, there's bird nests there, and the birds might get drowned. The water level's coming up, and those poor birds wouldn't be smart enough to fly away when the water, I mean, that's about as stupid as it gets. And so we need infrastructure. We need desal plants. We need to pay attention to water. But let me just note, we have done our job in Orange County. Had the rest of the state been as responsible as we've been, and we're talking about Jim and Steve here, I mean, we've got some people in Orange County that over the years have invested in this water recycling system that we've got that is the most cost-effective, and it is, I am very proud that I've been part of the team that ensured that we had this ground replenishment system working where we really don't have a water shortage here as compared to the rest of the state. So we just have to make sure we get the people who, for whatever Looney Tunes reasons, have been opposing the infrastructure and at the same time promoting the massive flooding of fresh water into the ocean in order to save the Delta smelt, which is a fish about that big. And that makes no sense. This lady back there has a question.
I'm wondering why we have never gotten water from Oregon, because it rains 6 months up there. So they have way more than they need, and their little rivers are running into and lakes onto the ocean, and they have, maybe if you guys haven't been up there, they have tsunami warnings everywhere now for a number of years since the quake in the East Asia.
100 years ago, that question would have been, why don't we get our water from Northern California where they have so much water and we don't have? And what happened is, during the 1950s and early 60s, we built a water system that did carry the water between Northern California and Southern California. And now, as you know, they're dumping the water into the ocean in order to save the little fish, but that's another issue. But the same thing, in order to get the water from Oregon, you have to build the infrastructure. And what you've got is radical environmentalists who do not want us to build that kind of infrastructure. They don't want to have, they like rustic and all natural stuff. And that, I'm sorry, it's fine. If they want to live in a bird's nest, it's fine. But we need water, and we need to have a decent life for ordinary people. You have to have water and energy. Those are the two things you need in abundance, or ordinary people will not live well. And we have been, thwarted over and over again by notions, basically these ideas that just a natural, the way things are naturally are the best way. Well, that just isn't the case. People, before we had civilization, people lived miserable lives. The least development that we had of our infrastructure, people lived horribly. And my parents grew up on small farms in North Dakota, and it was a miserable life for them, and they were homesteaders. And so anyway, we need to do the infrastructure, and Oregon, bringing it down from Oregon, that's one good idea. I think desal may be as cheap as it would be to building some kind of canal all the way from Oregon. It might, or pipeline, it might be cheaper to have a desal plant right here, a couple of them along the coast.
Hello, I'm Verlaine Crawford. Thank you for being here. In 1991, I happened to be at the Aspen Institute, and I got to be a guest in a meeting of CEOs, and they were talking about taking their companies to China. And since that time, since 1991 and recently, over 60,000 companies have moved out of the United States to China. So we naturally have lost a lot of jobs, millions of jobs. And is there any plan to do something about either bringing those companies back or spurring the economy in such a way that new manufacturing takes place? because almost all the products we buy, everything we're wearing, comes from China. And as a realtor in Newport Beach, and with friends who live in Pasadena area, as you know, they've brought their money and are buying up the United States. So I'd like to know, because I never hear, very, very rarely do I hear anyone speak about China who's running for office. It's like a forbidden topic. You know, and if there's any Chinese people here, welcome. I'm sorry that I'm mentioning this, but you know, they took over the whole San Gabriel Valley, and in Northern California and here. So anyway, that's my question. Can we get business back on order?
Well, first and foremost, let me say this. I am very proud that when I first came here, I was first elected in 1988, that from 1989, when I was sworn in, for the first 5 years in my office, I was leading the fight against providing most favored nation status for China. And I do not believe, see, I'm a free trader. I believe in free trade between free people. And that's the caveat. You can't have free trade between a free people like we are and a government-controlled, you know, basically a fascistic government-controlled economy like they have in China. If you have that, what you have is a manipulation of trade by that power structure that will hurt us and hurt their own people, but strengthen their dictatorship. And that's exactly what has happened. So I have opposed that all along. Our business community fought that every step of the way. They, any Republican conservative that tried to step up to that plate, I remember 20 years ago, were beaten down as if we were against commerce and trade, if we didn't want to allow the Chinese to have this type of trade relationship with us. And I lost that debate, and but I have consistently opposed permitting a country which is the world's worst human rights abuser, China, to have the same type of trading status as we have. And we have let them get away with murder. They have, for example, how much does it cost to entertain someone? Well, we have been entertaining them at our expense because they steal all of the TV and all of the motion pictures and all of the music. And they steal all of that from our artists, never give them a penny for it. We let them take our technology that we have spent billions and billions of dollars to develop. They use it to outcompete us. We let them get away with that over and over again. And it's the business community here. Look, businessmen are out to make a profit. Republicans like profit, but Republicans should be, the most important thing is should be patriots before they're profit seekers. And yeah, that's right. And unfortunately, there's many people in the Republican Party who do not understand that's the well-being of the American people. We come from every race, every religion, every ethnic group. We should be proud of that. And we are proud of that, but we should be concerned about that group of people. Those are the Americans. And over again, we get these people, the same Republicans who are trying to push this Gang of 8 proposal that would have brought in millions more illegals into our country, and they still are trying that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm for Ted Cruz, is he's not going to put up with that. And we're not going to have another continuing major flow, massive flow of illegals into our country. And the business community, yes, they want to make a profit, but they're thinking to themselves when they fight these efforts because they want cheap labor. And I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. If it's hurting the American people, the American workers, we should be for them and not for the profit of a few, but for the overall well-being of the American people, especially when some of the people who are coming in illegally may well be terrorists who want to murder us. So, well, there's nothing we can do until we get a new president, period. We get a new president, otherwise this president is going to do, you got to remember, the Constitution gives the president the power to veto anything and to get something done over that veto, we need a 2/3 vote. And so when the American people ended up voting for this president again, but a Republican Congress, but then we ended up with nowhere near a 2/3 vote, what we had was basically a paralysis of our government.
As a chief financial officer, I can add that having the highest corporate tax rates in the world, in the U.S., drives business overseas. That's crazy. And if you ever want to talk about budgets, I can go over the budget. Corporate taxes are a small part of the budget. You could get rid of the corporate tax and do a lot of good. Okay, it's a question over here.
I suppose the thing I'm most concerned about is a Trans-Pacific Partnership, which basically seems to end sovereignty in the United States. I want to know what you're doing about that and what can be done, because now that they've made it public, because of fast-track legislation, it's going to have to be being introduced to Congress. I would take in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, the Trans-Pac Treaty is Pacific Partnership, whatever you call it. It's it's a good example of what I'm talking about. And you've got some very powerful business interests who are behind it, and it's going to screw the American people. And give you an example. Here's one example. By the way, what is it? Why is it that they have to keep something secret from us, from everybody? How come? Do we have secret government? I mean, the fact that they imposed this cloak of secrecy over what's in that trade agreement should indicate to you there's something in there they don't want us to see. So actually, I sort of kept my powder dry, because what happened is you had to make an agreement to see what was in the treaty, that if you had to sign a document telling people you wouldn't say what you saw. Get it? I mean, there's something wrong when they take an elected official and say that we're going to tell you what you're going to be voting on, but you can't tell people what it is because if we agree to show it to you. I mean, that's how bad it was. So finally, I had heard something was in there that I didn't, that I wanted to make sure everybody understood. And what it was is I have, over the years, been the champion of a strong patent system. Okay, that's been my bailiwick. I have, and our big corporations, the Googles, Microsoft, you name it, the big names in American electronics have been trying to destroy our patent system for the last 25 years. And there's been a few of us who've been standing up for the small inventor and a strong patent system, and that intellectual property rights should be treated as property. And we in the United States believe that property is the ownership of the person who owns that property. Anyway, one of the things they were trying to do, I'll give you an example of how they were trying to destroy it. This is one of the first things I defeated over 25 years ago. Right now, an inventor invents something, he puts in a patent application. Our system has been, no matter how long it takes to get that patent issued, let's say it takes 5, 10 years, that patent application is secret, is confidential. And if anybody releases that information, they can go to jail. Now, every other country of the world, in Asia and in Europe, a guy who invents something puts a patent application in, and after 18 months, they publish the patent application even though the patent hasn't been issued. That's what they were trying to do to us. That's why we invent everything here, is because we are the ones who protect the person, his intellectual property rights. Well, over there, they destroyed it. Well, guess what is in this trade treaty? It says right in, and so I went into the secret room, and I was told over and over again, no, that's not in there. And so I went and looked at, and there it was. Can you stop it? Well, I'm going to do my very best, but I don't know if we can. All I can tell you is that we got the corporate wing of the Republican Party is going to overlook that, just the way they overlooked this most favored nation status with China. And it's going to be up. You're going to see this. And you know that Ted Cruz is, he's always getting everybody mad by being independent and sort of poking people in the eye about things like this. Well, we'll see. Ted Cruz will poke people in the eye, and I'll poke people in the eye, and they may be more powerful than us, but that's what it's all about.
I didn't have a question until you start talking about patents, because I'm an engineer, have 3 patents to my name, and about to file a number of additional patents. The recent law changes have hurt the small inventor, because now we've gone to, the other issues you talked about seem good, but we have gone to a first-to-file system rather than a first-to-invent. And for individuals like myself who may spend some time at their home and make an invention and then really don't have the money to file because it's extremely expensive, and now because we have a global economy, you can't just file in the United States. You have to file global patents, especially, you know, in countries that produce these products, or they're going to steal them. Tens of thousands, 100,000.
That change of rules happened 3 years ago. I was the number one on the floor opponent of the bill that changed that rule to first to file, first to invent.
Right.
And that's just the type of thing that they've been trying to move along because it will destroy you, the big guys.
Right.
It doesn't bother them at all.
Well, now we're about to file a number of patents with the company I work for, but fortunately we have a company behind us. And then again, if that company doesn't come up with the money to file, we can't file. As a matter of fact, one of the companies I had a patent filed with, they withdrew the patent because they didn't want the further expenses. So I think the new system, which went into effect, I think January 1 of this year, I'm not sure, is really hurting the small inventors, and it's really unfortunate. As an engineer and inventor, typically we keep documentation or logbooks of the work that we do, so we can prove that, or maybe even a videotape, that we have invented it as of a certain date. Although we haven't filed yet because we don't have the backing. Let's say we have to present it.
But now that won't help you because they changed the law.
Right, they changed the law first to file. In other words,
just so you'll know what he's talking about, in our country's entire history, it says in our Constitution, by the way, the word right is only used in the body of the Constitution once. Once. And that is the right of inventors and authors to control their creation for a specific period of time. It's their right to do that. And that's in our Constitution. The word other times, right of keep and bear arms, etc., that's after that, that's in the Bill of Rights. But the word right is only used once, and the law has always been the person who's actually the inventor is the one who has those rights. But they changed the law 3 years ago. I mean, I was leading the opposition to it, and it was the Republican Party, the corporate wing of our party, that was the one that pushed that through, I might add. Of course, the president who gladly signed it into law, changed that fundamental, and it's destroying little guys. Let me give you the other thing that they're trying to do. And this is, and I just stopped the one, this one, there's HR 9, that now they're trying to do this. All right, you got a small inventor. He's invented something of great value. He needs to get some people to invest in his operation so that he can file for patents, so that he can further develop his invention. Well, what they want to say today is anybody who would invest with this small inventor, if a big company steals his invention and he has to take them to court, what it is he, against this big mega corporations, okay, it's loser pays the legal fees for the winner. Now, he may be right, and he still lose. In our system, sometimes people who have whole stables full of lawyers are on the wrong side, but they win because they got more expertise and they just outweigh somebody. Well, in the past, of course, you didn't have to pay the legal fees, but now they want to even change it so that you have to pay the legal fees, and anybody who is invested in your company now is liable for the legal fees of trying to enforce it if someone is trying to steal it and you happen to lose. Is anyone ever going to invest in a small inventor again? Now, why are our big corporations doing this? Why are they doing it? For the same reason that they were insisting on treating China as if it was Great Britain. because they want to make a very quick profit, and they're not thinking about the long-term implications to our country and to the rest of our Americans. And we've got to, the Republican Party has to overcome that. If we don't overcome that, we lose.
Does it change writers also?
What was that?
Does it change authorship also?
The what, Bill?
The new law, does it change writing also? You said inventions, but change the writing?
No,
Like of a book?
no, it doesn't.
I wanted to thank you for being here. And I think in this coming year, a concern is going to involve the presence of voter fraud in the United States. I know that Judicial Watch is taking action against some states that have more registered voters than they have people. But in California, the governor and the legislature decided that people who were here illegally could obtain driver's licenses. Soon after that, he decided that people who were registered to drive would immediately be registered to vote. Okay, and I saw the draft of a bill that says that if somebody votes and they're not legally entitled to vote, they can't be held legally responsible for that. I don't know where that bill's going in the state legislature, but I just wanted to ask what the feeling is in Congress about this whole issue of voter fraud, particularly possible voter fraud in California.
Yeah, let me ask this. I have been trying to find out whether or not that law that provided everybody with a driver's license and when you have a driver's license, you are automatically registered to vote, if indeed that meant that people who are illegal who got their driver's license were automatically registered to vote. Has anyone looked up that, checked up on that? Have you checked up on that?
I saw something in the paper that they were deferring implementation for 9 months because that's obviously a conflict, but I'm not sure what their resolution is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not, I'm looking at federal law and not state law, so I would suggest I will be very happy to be involved in any effort to try to clean that up. And we have to, first of all, we're going to find out, is that the case? Does that law mean that you get your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote, and if you're illegal and get your driver's license, are you automatically registered to vote? Do you know if that's the case, sir?
I was hit by someone when I got the driver's license, so I do the research. It's the AB California Assembly Bill 60.
Yes.
And if you go read it, the driver's license looks the same like the normal one, but in the top right corner, it says federal limits apply. That means that driver's license was issued for illegal, or in the bill they say undocumented immigrants, and it's valid only in the state of California, and they cannot enter federal buildings with that ID.
Right.
And
But does it mean can they register
yeah,
to vote?
but it doesn't mean that they can do fraud. But what is interesting is that ACLU, on the same web page of the bill, gives so much advice what to do in case if you have an accident or if you're stopped by the police, and he said you have the right to just give them the driver license and that's it. And it's like a private lawyer told them to channeling in the wrong direction, not in the right direction.
Well, let me just note this. We have never forget that the United States has the most generous legal immigration system in the world. And I'm proud of that. I don't want to change that. I'm very, very proud that we have people who can legally come here. We have about 1 million a year. That's, we have 300 million people now, so that's 1/300th of our population every year are permitted to come here legally from other countries. I think that's a good thing. And so and by the way, that happens to equal all the rest of the world's combined, every country of the world combined, but what they permit to come into their country legally, that's what we do every year. So we have no apologies to make. But when it comes to illegal immigration over that, where we have people coming in who we don't know, they haven't been checked, some of them are diseased, many of them are criminals, and even if they're not, and they're just coming in a way that will depress the wages of ordinary people, or they're coming in a way that will flood our school districts so that our children get less of an education because of that, or if it's there's some, as I say, criminal situation, or whether someone's in, or again, they're bidding down wages or taking jobs that should go to American people, and that is something that should not ever have been tolerated. We tolerated it for so many years, and I think that I've been involved in that fight since the day I was elected. And again, half of the Republican Party's got, not half, but maybe a third or a fourth of the Republican Party has got the wrong ideas on this. Rubio, I don't know where the hell Rubio thinks he's coming from. He's an American citizen. He's an American, Cuban American. He'd be proud of that, as is Ted Cruz. We're not anti-immigrant. But you can't have floods of millions of people coming here and not expect, out of control, and expect that's not going to hurt the standard of living of the people we're supposed to be watching out for. And it's wrong. Even right now, we have people, and again, I'm sorry for being so attacking of businessmen who go take their business to China, et cetera. They end up saying, we need H-1B visas. Look, I'm on a science committee. Can I tell you how many engineers come to me and are crying on my shoulder because they're out of work? They work so hard for a company for 20 years, and then the company hires on some 23-year-old person from China or from India, because that 23 or 24-year-old will work at half the wages and won't get sick. Do we have no loyalty towards that guy who's put out 20 years of work? Yeah. Yeah, and it's, then half of the time with the H-1B visas, they come in and they're phonies. So anyway, we have to start watching. If we watch out for our own people, business will succeed. You know, they will. We can, with American citizens, actually have prosperous companies. We don't need to bring in all kinds of people. And look, is there something wrong with the fact that some guy who's 45, 50 years old and he's worked all of his life for Northrop Corporation, or how about Disney World or wherever that is? And then we're going to have to, these companies expect these guys to train some young guy to take their job? This is sinful. Okay.
Very good. Amen. This gentleman here.
My question is, what's going on with the mandatory vaccines in California, and which type of schools will it affect?
I don't know. I don't deal with California law. I mean, remember, federal, state, and local. I would oppose any mandatory anything from, especially dealing with injections for your children and things like that. I'm sorry. I've got 3 kids, and I'll make the decision if they're going to get in some type of injection with some kind of medicine. I do not believe that the federal government has a right to mandate these type of things for honest citizens.
Tom, did you have something on that?
One of the things that we've been concerned about since 2010 is Obamacare. And if we are fortunate enough to have a Republican president, is Congress ready to implement some laws that would eliminate and replace and repeal Obamacare?
The minute we have a new president, the Congress is ready. Simple as that. There's no reason for us to, right now, to have a knockdown, drag-out fight with a president with something we cannot win, because you need a 2/3 vote in order to beat the presidential veto, and there is no reason for us to waste everybody's time until we have a new president. Once there is a new president, if we maintain the same Congress that we have today, the answer is yes.
I guess my real question was, is it too late? I mean,
No.
We're down the road.
It's never too late.
And the second part is, can you share with us what the plan is going to look like?
Yes, the plan will look like something that you and the American people will get behind and find acceptable. There are issues that needed to be dealt with that were not dealt with by the Republicans. We know that a certain number of people in our country were ineligible for health insurance because they had pre-existing conditions. Okay? And although we did know about half the states had already taken care of that problem, but about half the states they didn't. And I think that that was the central issue, that and the cost of health care that was going up and up and up at the time. That was the central issues that caused the Obamacare to get passed in the first place. Remember, it only passed by one vote. Now, by the way, it passed one vote in the Senate. Wasn't there a senator that got arrested in Alaska and then he was kicked out and then they found out it was all a fraud? You mean the FBI may have done something like that? I want to tell you something. We live in a world, this is not the world where we have a pristine government and we have just players say, whatever the democratic process comes out with, we're gonna go along with it. These people mean to change the United States. When the president promised to change our country, that's what he's been doing. And if somebody gets in his way, they destroy them. And Senator Stevens up in Alaska was one of the great American heroes. Man who, I think he landed in D-Day. And what kind of thanks did he get? Driven out of office, and then they found out that all the evidence that showed that he was innocent was put into a file and not shown to anybody by the FBI. And that's not unique. And this president, believe me, if we get another guy like this president, man or woman like this president, the oppression that we are going to be suffering is going to go up. How many went and saw this Ernesto de Souza movie that we had about Hillary and that? What a coincidence that after he does a movie about Hillary and about the background of our president, that there is an FBI investigation with a microscope trying to find out if they can find anything that he did wrong and indict him for it, and he ends up in jail. Yeah, he gave a $10,000 donation to somebody else to give to a friend, okay? Now, that was against the law. It was, he went over his max of what he could give to his friend. $10,000. Do you know that we have these super max PACs now that give hundreds of millions of dollars to people? And we're worried that de Souza gave $10,000 to a friend for running to Congress? We live in a country that's on the edge of tyranny. And again, that's why this election is so bad and so really important. And we don't need to have, Ted Cruz doesn't win and Rubio wins, fine. But we can't let the gang that's now around Obama stay in power for another 4 years or we're dead. Last question, then we got to get going.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, I try to shop and find things that are made in America. And then failing that, I'll try to find something that's made anywhere but China. And I'm noticing lately that a lot of things don't say where they're made. The tag doesn't say that anymore. Did a law pass recently that allows vendors to not identify where their stuff is manufactured? And if it did, what can we do to get our old law back?
That's a very good question, and let me just, she's noting that even when you try to check the labels to find out where your buying comes, where it's coming from, a lot of times you have to look real hard, and sometimes it's not there at all. We Republicans should believe that people are free to choose what they want to consume, what they want to buy, and but everything should be labeled. And I get a lot of people, my wife, as you know, I'm sure a lot of you know Rhonda, she's really hard on this, no gluten, all these, what are they, NGO, no, GMOs, NGOs or something else, GMOs. So anyway, she's really hot on all that stuff. Okay, I get it. But the fact is, the American people have a right to make their decision. I'm not going to outlaw GMOs because Rhonda doesn't like GMOs, and I'm not going to outlaw these different things, but the American people will make their mind up if you give them that choice. And we need to make sure that we insist on labeling both countries of origin and ingredients. That's good. It is a good thing to give people the right to have the information to make the choices for their own life. And anything that is done to try to expand that, as your congressperson, I will support it. Anything trying to contract that right of you to know what's in there, I will oppose it. And with that said, this is all about freedom. That's what it comes down to. It's all about freedom. Our founding fathers, this is a country that started with the whole idea, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that every individual has that right given by God to pursue that happiness. And this is not something that the government is going to decide for you. This is how you decide. And we are going to preserve that freedom, or we're going to lose it. And we're on the edge, and so I want you to know Costa Mesa is right on the front line, and we are going to be very active, and Steve and Jimmy and the rest of us, and Tom and the whole gang, and we are going to make sure that we have the most active community that we can possibly have to make sure that the next President of the United States is not part of the liberal left clique that's taking us down this horrible road towards tyranny. So I know you're part of the team. God bless you. Thank you very much.